I remember standing there, frozen in the dim yellow light of my sister's bedroom, my hands still gripping the edge of her dresser as if it might anchor me to reality. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it echo in my ears. Because the person staring back at me wasn't the person I'd always known. My name is Daniel. At least, it used to feel like it belonged to me without question. 27 years of living in that identity. Office job, short hair, button-down shirts, predictable routines. But that night, wearing a borrowed blouse that wasn't mine, something shifted. It had started as a stupid dare. My sister Mia had left town for the weekend, and I was house-sitting for her apartment. My friend Tyler had come over to watch a game, and at some point, probably around our third beer, we wandered into Mia's room looking for spare blankets. That's when Tyler spotted the dress hanging on the closet door. He smirked. "Dude, you wouldn't." I rolled my eyes. "Wouldn't what?" "Try it on." I laughed it off at first. But he kept pushing, the way friends do when they think something will be funny. "Come on, man. 5 seconds. I won't even take a picture." I should have said no. Instead, I grabbed the dress. Just to prove it didn't matter. Just to prove it was ridiculous. But when the fabric slid over my shoulders, something strange happened. It was soft, lighter than anything I usually wore. The material brushed against my skin in a way that felt unfamiliar, but not wrong. Tyler was laughing behind me. "Turn around," he said. I stepped toward the mirror. And that's when everything stopped. Because the reflection looking back at me wasn't just Daniel in a dress. It was someone else. Someone softer. Someone curious. I tilted my head slowly, watching the way the dress moved when I shifted my weight. My hair was messy from the day, but longer than I usually noticed, falling just enough across my forehead that, with the right angle. Tyler whistled. "Bro, that's actually kind of scary." I didn't laugh. Because something inside me had gone very, very quiet. The next Monday, nothing felt normal anymore. I sat at my desk in the office staring at spreadsheets while the memory of that mirror kept replaying in my mind. The blouse. The dress. That strange flicker of recognition. It made no sense. I wasn't someone who thought about things like that. My life had always been straightforward. Work. Gym. Drinks with friends. But now every reflective surface felt dangerous. The elevator mirror. The glass windows. Even my dark laptop screen. Every time I caught my reflection, I found myself wondering, what would it look like again? Daniel. I blinked and looked up. My coworker Sarah was standing by my desk. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah. Why?" "You've been staring at the same spreadsheet for like 10 minutes. I forced a laugh. "Just tired." But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about Mia's closet. Her apartment. Her clothes. The idea crept into my thoughts like a whisper I couldn't quite silence. That night, after work, I told myself I was just stopping by to check the mail for her. Just being responsible. But the moment I stepped into her apartment, I knew I was lying to myself. The place was quiet. Still. Her bedroom door was half open. And the closet was exactly where I remembered it. My hands were shaking when I pushed the door wider. Rows of dresses. Blouses. Shoes neatly lined along the floor. I stood there for a long time. "You're being ridiculous," I muttered under my breath. But my feet carried me inside anyway. I reached out slowly and touched a sleeve. The fabric slipped between my fingers like water. Soft. Light. Different from anything in my own closet. My heart started racing again. Before I could talk myself out of it, I pulled one of the blouses off the hanger. "Just curiosity," I whispered. That's all it was. Just curiosity. The first time I dressed alone, it felt like committing a crime. I locked the bedroom door even though no one was there. My hands fumbled with the buttons of the blouse as I pulled it on, my breathing shallow and quick. Then I found a skirt. I hesitated longer with that one. But eventually, I stepped into it. The zipper slid up my back with a soft metallic sound. And suddenly the room felt different. Quieter. Heavier. I walked toward the mirror slowly. My reflection stared back. Daniel, but not quite Daniel. The clothes changed everything. My posture. My movements. Even the way I held my shoulders. I tilted my head again the same way I had that night with Tyler. And a strange thought slipped into my mind. What if? My eyes drifted to Mia's makeup bag. No, I said out loud. But my feet moved toward it anyway. I'd watched enough people apply makeup online to have a rough idea what went where. The first attempt was terrible. Foundation too thick. Eyeliner crooked. I looked like someone had drawn a face on a mannequin. But instead of feeling embarrassed, I laughed. A real laugh. Because underneath the mess, I could see glimpses of something. Possibility. So I tried again. And again. Each attempt better than the last. Each moment in front of that mirror stretching longer than the one before. Until eventually I leaned closer and whispered to my reflection. Who are you? And for the first time in my life, I didn't have a clear answer. Weekends became my secret world. During the week, I was still Daniel. Button-down shirts. Office coffee. Safe conversations about deadlines and traffic. But on Friday nights, something shifted. I'd drive to Mia's apartment after work, my stomach tight with anticipation. The moment the door closed behind me, the transformation began. Clothes first. Then makeup. Then hair. I started experimenting. Watching tutorials, learning small tricks. Contour here. A little mascara there. The first time I got the eyeliner right, I nearly cheered. And slowly, piece by piece, the person in the mirror started to feel familiar. Not a stranger. Not a joke. A version of me. But different. One Saturday night, I stared at my reflection longer than usual. The outfit that night was simple, a black dress, tights, and a pair of ankle boots. I turned sideways. Then back again. A thought crept into my mind that made my stomach flip. What if I went outside? The idea was terrifying. But also, thrilling. My heart pounded as I grabbed Mia's coat and stepped into the hallway. Every sound felt amplified. Every movement hyper-aware. The elevator ride down felt like it lasted an hour. When the doors opened into the lobby, I almost turned around. But the doorman barely glanced at me. Evening, he said casually. Evening. Just like that. No shock. No laughter. Just normal. I stepped out into the cool night air feeling like my legs might give out. Cars passed. People walked by. No one stopped. No one pointed. I was just another person on the street. And for the first time since this strange journey began, I felt something close to peace. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. The confrontation came 3 weeks later. I was back at the office when Sarah approached my desk again. Daniel, she said slowly.
Yeah.
She hesitated. Then she turned her phone toward me. My stomach dropped. It was a photo. Not a clear one, but clear enough. Me. Outside a small cafe downtown. In the black dress. My mind raced. Where did you get that? My friend took it, she said gently. She thought you looked familiar. I couldn't breathe. Are you going to tell people? Sarah shook her head. No. I stared at her. Why not? She smiled softly. Because you looked happy. The tension in my chest cracked open. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she said something I'll never forget. You don't have to explain anything to me. But if that's part of who you are, you shouldn't have to hide it. Her words echoed in my mind long after she walked away. Shouldn't have to hide it. That night, I stood in front of Mia's mirror again. But this time the question wasn't who are you? The question was, what are you going to do about it? The answer came slowly. Not in one dramatic moment. But in a series of small choices. The first was telling Mia. I expected shock. Anger. But when I finished explaining everything, she just leaned back on her couch and crossed her arms. So, she said. You've been stealing my clothes. I braced myself. Then she grinned. You could have just asked. I stared at her. You're not mad. Daniel, she laughed. Half my wardrobe looks better on you than it does on me. We spent the next hour going through her closet together. For the first time, it didn't feel like sneaking. It felt like belonging. The second choice was bigger. One Saturday afternoon, instead of waiting for night, I walked out of the apartment in full daylight. The sun felt warmer. The world louder. But the fear that once wrapped around my chest had loosened. Because now I knew something important. This wasn't about pretending. It wasn't about costumes or dares. It was about discovery. About parts of myself I had never allowed to exist before. And once I had seen that person in the mirror, I couldn't unsee them. These days, my life looks different. Some days I'm still Daniel. Other days, I'm someone softer, freer, more expressive. And I've stopped thinking of it as borrowing clothes. Or stealing an identity. Because the truth is, nothing was stolen. That person in the mirror had been there all along. Waiting quietly behind expectations and routines. Waiting for the moment I'd finally look closely enough to see them. So if you've ever caught a glimpse of yourself, some unexpected version of who you might be, and it scared you, maybe that fear isn't a warning. Maybe it's an invitation. An invitation to step a little closer to the mirror. And ask the same question I did. Who are you, really? Because sometimes,